Thank you very much, Ted Barris. I've read a number of Ted's books. I make sure that I get them when they come available. I'll tell you, if you haven't read his books, they're absolutely marvelous, and you learn a great deal. Ted will be in our gift shop following the service. His books are available, and he will be glad to autograph them for you, and all the proceeds from that, of course, go to the Canadian Warplane Heritage Museum, for which we thank him. It is our practice at this service of remembrance to recite the poem High Flight. And here to do it for us is Canadian Warplane Heritage member, retired Lieutenant Colonel Fergus Kyle, who is retired from Air Canada as a captain and retired from the Royal Canadian Air Force as a Lieutenant Colonel. Ferg?
This poem was written in September 1941 by Pilot Officer John Gillespie McGee, Jr. He was a volunteer in the Royal Air Force from the United States. He was 19. Oh, I have slipped the surly bonds of earth and danced the skies on laughter-silvered wings. Sunward I've climbed and joined the tumbling mirth of sun-split clouds and done 100 things you have not dreamed of, wheeled, soared, and swung high in the sunlit silence. Hovering there, I've chased the shouting wind along and flung my eager craft through footless halls of air. Up the long, delirious, burning blue. I've topped the windswept heights with easy grace, where never lark or either eagle flew. And while with sun-silent lifting mind, I've trod the high, untrespassed sanctity of space, put out my hand and touched the face of God.
Thank you very much for And now an anthem from this wonderful Redeemer College Choir.
All right, as the Redeemer College Choir begins to sing the Song of Triumph right now, I'm joined by Dave Pridham. He's an Afghanistan veteran in the Canadian Forces. Dave, what are your thoughts so far on today's ceremony?
I think it's been a terrific ceremony so far. The band and the choir have been doing great. The speakers have been fantastic. I like the emphasis on remembrance and peace, that war isn't glorious, and that we really need to take this remembrance forward to try to bring a lasting peace. Because I really think that's what this day is all about. Absolutely. You spent 6 months in Afghanistan in 2006, you were telling me. Do those memories come back even more today, or is that just something that's with you every day? It's with you every day. I mean, you take it with you. It certainly comes back more on a day like this. Just bringing in other senses, like hearing the bagpipes. Certain smells I find can take me back to Afghanistan, but the pipes are always very powerful. The Flowers of the Forest was played for every ramp ceremony in Afghanistan, and so you immediately flash back to that. And even the choir, I mean, the sound is so fantastic, it almost brings a tear to your eye. Mm-hmm. It is, and these are very touching moments. I mean, the last post, when that plays, that song, just you can't help but be moved. You know, you feel the hairs on the back of your neck standing up, and I'm sure you've heard that enough times as well to get that similar feeling. As we just continue to listen in here, the Song of Triumph right now, Redeemer College performing here. When you see all these people out, the young and the old veterans, it's amazing to think of Canada's military history as well, isn't it, when you see how long Canadians have been serving and helping. Absolutely. Right now, we do have so many generations in this building right now. I've seen at least 2 other soldiers still in their uniforms, still serving, both wearing the General Campaign Star for Afghanistan. A lot of folks from 424 Squadron have the medal as well. They were probably flying supply missions in and out. And I mean, there are so many peacekeepers and other soldiers that we don't even talk about. We had peacekeepers in Cyprus for almost 30 years, from 1964, I believe, to 1973. They're veterans too.
That's a very good point. People just think really strictly of military, don't they?
That's right.
Yeah.
And you yourself, you've been with sailors when they were in Haiti. What about the Navy, right? There's a mission right now in the Persian Gulf. They're veterans as well. They're putting their lives in danger. To me, I think a veteran is anyone who's willing to risk their life for their comrades and their country. Whatever service it is, we need to honor all of them.
And I mean, and that really is what you're doing. You are risking your life. I mean, you're not only risking your life, but you were there trying to help save lives as well as a medic too, right?
It's true. It's true. It's a difficult job. There's no doubt. I consider myself very lucky. I missed some of the worst incidents on my tour. Folks might remember the second friendly fire incident in 2006 when Canadian troops were hit by a strafing American aircraft, over 30 injured. Luckily, only one man died that day, Private Graham. That was a bad day, but it's very difficult, and caring for Afghans as well.
Yes, of course.
I noticed one of the medics that I served with, he went back for a second tour in 2009, and he was mentioned in dispatches for saving an Afghan policeman's life under fire.
Really? Yeah.
Erkan Checheki,
Yeah. And when you think about the Afghanistan war, we know, of course, that there are still Canadians, as much as it's no longer a combat mission, they are still in harm's way, aren't they?
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up, because we don't hear much about Afghanistan anymore outside of days like this. And we've already lost one soldier on the non-combat mission, just as an advisor. Because even though it's not officially combat, soldiers are still putting their lives at risk. They're still going to go out there with their Afghan trainees and comrades, and they're still putting their lives at risk.
All right, Dave, we're about to watch the wreath-laying ceremonies here, so we'll Dean Allison, the MP of Niagara West-Glanbrook, is speaking now.
To be representing the federal government, and I'd like to extend greetings from the Prime Minister. 94 years ago today, on November 11th, 1918, 11 a.m., the signing of the Armistice Treaty between the Allies and Germany took place. While the signing of this treaty saw silence descend on the battlefields of Europe, it unfortunately did not put an end to future wars and armed conflicts around the world. Since that historic moment in time, the world has seen many more lives lost in battle, including thousands upon thousands of Canadians. During the first half of the 20th century, more than 1.5 million Canadians were called upon to defend international peace and freedom. More than 110,000 Canadians lost their lives. This Remembrance Day is meaningful as it marks the three significant historical military milestones. This year marks the 95th anniversary of the Vimy Ridge, the 95th anniversary of the Battle of Passchendaele, and the 70th anniversary of the Dieppe Raid. Many Canadian veterans made the ultimate sacrifice in those battles, which ensured our country's very existence and continued peace and security. Today, we recognize November 11th as an opportunity to give thanks and to pay tribute to those soldiers who have made the ultimate sacrifice in defense of our country and the values we share as Canadians. And at the same time, we want to thank the Canadian soldiers who are today continuing to work to defend these values and promote peace around the world. Today, both our veterans and active military personnel carry on the legacy of our fathers and mothers, our brothers and sisters, and our friends who sacrificed everything to protect our values and freedoms. Their bravery and self-sacrifice will always be remembered by a grateful nation. It is because of their dedication and commitment that Canadian families live in peace and security. Our Royal Canadian Armed Forces epitomize courage, integrity, and valor, attributes recognized both at home and abroad. I would like to pass on my gratitude to those we have lost, to all the veterans, their families, and the families of fallen soldiers that are gathered here today. Your willingness to serve and the sacrifice you have made have given us the liberties that we enjoy today, and for that, we will always be grateful. Today, we offer our gratitude and our commitment to never forget their service, lest we forget.
And that was Dean Allison, MP, of course, Niagara West-Glanbrook. The next person up to offer acknowledgements will be Tim Hudak, of course, the MPP Niagara West-Glanbrook and the leader of the Provincial Progressive Conservative Party.
Well, Bill, thank you very kindly, Reverend Beaton. Distinguished and honorable veterans and our members of the Royal Canadian Armed Forces here with us today. It's a great honor as we gather together to remember the men and women who have made the ultimate sacrifice. It's a great honor to be here on behalf of the province of Ontario to mark this solemn occasion where Canadians gather to honor and pay tribute to those who have fought for the liberation of millions around the world and who died for our freedom. So to the veterans who are here with us today, we're blessed to have them with us. We thank you. Your service to this great country is something we never take for granted. The debt we owe you can never be repaid. It's great to see so many folks here, men and women, children. Shows you where our heart is. You know, as Canadians, we don't often wear our hearts on our sleeve. We're a humble nation. We do our work, we do it quietly. But there's so much to be proud of. The fact is that during the toughest battles, the international community knows that when called upon, Canadians are prepared to wear our country's uniform with great pride in defense of our values, to protect our way of life. And we get the job done. Whether it was from Vimy to Dieppe, Korea to Bosnia, Rwanda to Kandahar, it was during the world's darkest hours that Canadians like you answered the call. Let me tell you a bit about Amiens. Led by General Sir Arthur Currie, brave soldiers in the First World War, Canadians launched a carefully planned attack on enemy forces involving deception, the element of surprise. The Amiens battle was the cause, the first, to see the Germans not only defeated, but the first rout of the Germans, the Battle of Amiens. The Germans not only lost, they actually fled. Sadly, almost 8,000 young Canadians lost their lives in that battlefield, never returned home. But their sacrifice began what was called Canada's 100 Days, from August until November 11th, 1918, that saw 100,000 Canadians take on about 1/4 of the German armed forces along the Western Front. Brave Canadians that broke the German army's spirit to fight, the will to carry on. It was Canadians' contribution to that 100 days that was instrumental in ending World War I. That same professionalism, courage, and good old-fashioned grit and determination was shown on D-Day in World War II when 30,000 Canadian troops successfully landed on Juno Beach at Normandy and pushed farther into France than any of the Allied forces, and it was Canadians who held the most soil. And when called upon by NATO to deploy to Kandahar, it was the Canadian Armed Forces that showed the leadership and took on the heaviest of lifting, fighting for democracy and against the terrorists in Afghanistan. And today, as part of that, we remember the men and women who lost their lives while they courageously fought against tyranny and terrorism, fought for our rights. And those rights in Afghanistan are something so basic as the ability of a little girl to go to school. Friends, there is no sight more inspiring to the oppressed and more terrifying to the enemy than Canadian soldiers fighting for Canadian ideals. When called upon, our country's fighting force in spirit is awe-inspiring. Remembrance Day provides us an opportunity to remember their bravery, their determination, and their conviction that has led to much military success and has afforded us the peace and prosperity that we have today. But it came at the cost of a lot of lives, an awful, awful lot of them. So today we gather to remember the brave soldiers, sailors, airmen and women who gave their lives in service of Canada and fighting for our values. We remember their sacrifices, and we cherish this great country that they made possible, lest we forget.